Y'all, I need you to stop what you are doing right now. Put everything down, because today's story is not just going to make you angry. Today's story is going to make you feel something you have been trying not to feel for a very long time. She did not find out because he confessed. She did not find out because someone took pity on her. She found out the way most women find out. A notification, a name, a thread of messages that went back further than she ever imagined. And in 60 seconds, 5 years of marriage. A 4-year-old daughter who still believed her daddy was a hero. A home she had poured her entire soul into building. All of it became a lie. But here is what makes Jessica's story different from every other betrayal story you have ever heard. The affair was not the worst part. The worst part was what the affair forced her to finally see, that she had been disappearing inside this marriage long before Amber ever existed. That she had been emotionally starving for years. That she had been shrinking herself, adjusting herself, apologizing for herself so many times and for so long that she had almost forgotten who she was before she started. Y'all, pour something, sit all the way down. This is Jessica's story. And honey, it is going to stay with you long after this video ends. Welcome back to Messy Truth Stories, the one place where real women's stories get told the way they deserve to be told. Today is different from anything we have covered on this channel before. This is not just a cheating husband story. This is a story about a woman who loved so completely, so devotedly, so fully, that she lost herself in the process. And what happened when she finally decided to find herself again. Jessica is 34 years old. She lives in a quiet suburb outside of Nashville, Tennessee. She has a 4-year-old daughter named Lily, who sleeps every night with a stuffed elephant named Peanut, and wakes up every single morning saying, "Good morning, my favorite people." Until 8 weeks ago, Jessica believed she had a marriage worth fighting for. Let's get into it. To understand what was taken from Jessica, you have to understand what Jessica gave. Y'all, this woman loved hard. Not the easy kind of love. Not the kind that shows up when everything is fine and life is comfortable. The hard kind. The kind that shows up at 11 p.m. when your husband is stressed about work and you rub his back even though you have been on your feet since 6 in the morning. The kind of love that makes excuses for someone's emotional absence because you genuinely believe the best in them. The kind of love that stays. Jessica was that woman. She was devoted. She was present. She remembered every anniversary and planned every birthday and made their house feel like a home even on the hardest days. She worked full-time. She came home and cooked dinner. She bathed Lily and read her stories and sang her to sleep. And then she would sit across from her husband, Michael, and try, with everything she had left, to connect with him. And Michael was there, physically present, paying bills, showing up for the practical things. But emotionally? Honey, Michael had checked out a long time ago, and Jessica told herself it was stress. She told herself he was just not an expressive person. She told herself she was probably asking for too much. She kept shrinking. She kept adjusting her expectations downward. She kept loving harder, hoping that one day he would meet her there. He never did. But Jessica, devoted, loyal, exhausted Jessica, stayed anyway. Because she had made a promise. And Jessica took her promises seriously. Michael was 36 years old, charming when he wanted to be, the kind of man who could walk into a room and make everyone feel like the most important person there. Everyone except his wife. He had a good job managing a team at a marketing firm in downtown Nashville. well-liked, respected. But at home, he had a deeply cruel habit of making Jessica feel like her emotional needs were an inconvenience. Like her desire for connection was somehow excessive, dramatic, too much. When she would talk about the distance between them, he would say she was overthinking. When she said she felt lonely, he would say he was tired. When she asked for more affection, he would somehow make her feel guilty for wanting it. And Jessica, because she loved him, would apologize. Sis, she would apologize for wanting to feel loved by her own husband. That is how deep the conditioning had gone. And while Jessica was busy apologizing for wanting basic human connection, Michael was at the office getting to know Amber. Amber was 22 years old, fresh out of college, first real job, bright and eager, and new. She joined Michael's team 6 months before everything fell apart. Now, y'all, I want to be careful here. This story is not about Amber being a monster. She was 22 years old, but the person who stood in front of Jessica's family and God and promised to love and protect his wife. That was Michael. Amber did not make those vows. Michael did. And Michael broke every single one of them. Not once, not accidentally, deliberately, repeatedly, over months. It was a Tuesday night in October. Lily was asleep. Jessica had just finished cleaning the kitchen. Michael was on the couch on his phone, which had become so normal she barely noticed anymore. She asked him something ordinary, something domestic. He answered without looking up. And some quiet instinct that had been trying to get her attention for months, made her glance at his screen. Just for a second. Just long enough to see a name and a message that did not make sense coming from a work colleague at 9:30 on a Tuesday night. She asked who it was. He said nobody, work stuff. She asked to see his phone. He hesitated. Y'all, that hesitation. That one single second of hesitation told Jessica everything she needed to know before she ever read a single word. She asked again. He handed her the phone. And in 60 seconds, her entire life rearranged itself. The messages went back 4 months. 4 months. They started professional, became personal, then intimate. Then Amber was telling Michael she had feelings for him. Then Michael was not shutting it down, keeping the door open, feeding something that had no business existing. And messages where Michael told Amber he still loved his wife. Still loved his wife. While letting a 22-year-old believe she could have Jessica's life, her home, her daughter, her future. He wanted both. He was comfortable with both for 4 months, and Jessica had no idea. She put the phone down. She walked to Lily's room. She stood in the doorway and watched her daughter sleeping with Peanut the stuffed elephant. And she fell apart, quietly, so Lily would not wake up. On the floor of her daughter's doorway, completely alone. She went back to the living room. Michael was sitting there, phone face down, waiting. And Jessica, who had spent years softening herself, shrinking herself, looked at her husband and felt something shift. Not just heartbreak, something colder, something clearer. She asked him how long. He said it was not what she thought. She asked again. He said 4 months. Nothing physical, just talking. Amber developed feelings and he did not know how to handle it. Y'all, he did not know how to handle it. For 4 months, this man could not figure out how to say, I am a married man with a daughter. Do not contact me again. But he knew how to hide it, how to lie, how to tilt his phone away from his wife, how to keep 2 worlds running simultaneously. He knew how to do all of that just fine. Jessica asked him if he loved her. He said yes. and never stopped loving her, never intended to leave, told Amber he still loved his wife, and Jessica, broken and shaking on her own couch, tried to make that make sense. If you loved me, why did you make room for her? Why did you let her believe she could have my home, my daughter, my life? If you loved me, why was I the only one actually protecting this marriage? Michael had no answer, because there is no answer. There is no version of that story where what he did makes sense if love was actually real. Here is where Jessica's story goes somewhere deeper, y'all. Because after the initial explosion, after the tears and the confrontation and the sleepless nights, Jessica started to see something she had been refusing to look at for years. The affair did not create the problem in her marriage. The affair exposed it. Because when Jessica finally stopped defending Michael, when she finally stopped shrinking and adjusting and apologizing, she realized she had been emotionally starving for years. She had been devoted. She had praised him, supported him, stayed patient, made their home feel safe, tried to love him in every way she knew how. And in return, she rarely felt admired, rarely felt pursued, rarely felt deeply seen, rarely felt naturally cherished. She told herself he just was not expressive, not romantic, that she was asking too much. But honey, wanting to feel loved by your own husband is not asking too much. Wanting to feel seen by the person who promised to see you is not asking too much. Wanting basic emotional presence from the man you built a life with is not asking too much. Jessica had not been asking too much. She had been asking the wrong person. Jessica left the night she found out. She packed a bag, put Lily in her car seat, drove to her Mama Sandra's house at midnight. Sandra opened the door, took one look at her daughter, and pulled her inside without a single word. That night, Jessica lay in her childhood bedroom listening to Lily breathe and thought about every ordinary Tuesday night she had spent loving a man who was on his phone talking to someone else. She stayed 5 days. And then she went back. Y'all, I know how that sounds. She went back because of Lily. She wanted her daughter to have a little more time in the only home she had ever known. She went back because the silence after the explosion was suffocating. She went back because despite everything, she still loved him enough to want answers. And she hates herself for how complicated that makes this. Being back has not made her want to stay. Watching Michael try, watching him say the right things, has shown her exactly how much she cannot ever see him the same way again. Because trying after betrayal, y'all, trying is the minimum. Trying is the floor. Trying does not get a standing ovation when you are the one who burned the house down. 3 days after she came back, Jessica found more. Michael had left his iPad on the kitchen counter. A notification came through while she was standing right there. Another message from Amber, asking Michael if he had told his wife yet, asking what was going to happen, asking where she stood. Y'all, Amber was still contacting him, and Michael had not blocked her, had not ended it, had not protected his wife. He had left the door open again. Jessica picked up the iPad, walked to the living room, placed it on the coffee table in front of him without saying a word. Michael looked at the screen, looked at his wife, and said, I was going to handle it. I was going to handle it. After everything. After the confrontation and the tears, and her coming back and giving him a chance he did not deserve. He was going to handle it. On his timeline. When he felt ready. And something in Jessica went very quiet. Not the quiet of giving up. The quiet of clarity. The quiet of a woman who has finally seen enough. Now, let me tell you about Lily. because Lily is the reason Jessica stayed as long as she did. Lily is 4 years old. She has her daddy's eyes and her mama's laugh. She calls Jessica Mama Bear. She calls Michael Daddy Big. She has no idea the world she was born into is cracking underneath her little feet. Every morning, Lily pads down the hallway in her fuzzy socks and climbs into bed between her parents and says, "Good morning, my favorite people. Y'all, I cannot." Jessica told me that every morning when Lily says those words, she has to hold herself together with everything she has. Because how do you tell a 4-year-old that her favorite people are not going to be in the same house anymore? And here is what Jessica has slowly and painfully come to understand. Lily does not need her parents to pretend. Lily needs her parents to be whole. A mother who chooses herself, who shows her daughter that love should never require you to disappear. That mother gives Lily something no household built on lies ever could. She gives her a template, a living, breathing example of what a woman who knows her worth looks like. And one day, when Lily is grown and someone asks too much of her, she will remember her mama, and she will know exactly what to do. I have to tell you about Sandra. Sandra is Jessica's mama. 61 years old, retired school teacher, makes the best sweet tea in all of Nashville, and has never once in her entire life let her daughter face something hard alone. The night Jessica showed up at her door at midnight with Lily on her hip and tears she was desperately trying to hide, Sandra did not ask a single question. She opened the door. She took Lily. She made up the guest room. She put the kettle on, and at 1 a.m, when Jessica finally broke down completely at the kitchen table, Sandra sat across from her daughter and held both her hands and said, "Baby, you do not have to explain a single thing tonight. Tonight, you just cry. Tomorrow, we figure out the rest." Y'all, that is a mother. That is what showing up actually looks like. No judgment. No, I told you so. No rushing to fix what was not ready to be fixed. Just presence. Just 2 hands across a kitchen table at 1 a.m. Sandra told Jessica something she has written down and reads every single morning now. She said, "The bravest thing you will ever do is choose a life that is honest. Even when it costs you everything you thought you wanted. Especially then." Michael suggested marriage counseling, and Jessica, because she genuinely tries, even when she has every reason not to, agreed. They went twice. The first session, Michael spent most of the time explaining his side. The pressure at work, how disconnected he had been feeling, how lonely he had been, Y'all, the man who had a 22-year-old sending him messages about wanting his life, sat in a therapist's office and talked about his loneliness. Jessica sat next to him and stared at the wall and thought, "I was lonely too, Michael. I was lonely in our bed. I was lonely at our dinner table. I was lonely loving you with everything I had and getting the bare minimum back. The difference is, I did not go looking for someone else because of it." By the second session, Jessica knew. No amount of therapy was going to rebuild what Michael had broken. Not because healing is impossible, but because healing requires 2 people fully committed to the truth. And Michael was still managing the truth, still softening it, still protecting himself inside the story he was telling. Jessica was done waiting for him to be honest. She was done carrying the weight of his comfort. She was done. It happened on a Wednesday afternoon. Lily was at preschool. Michael was at work. Jessica was sitting at the kitchen table with a cup of coffee she had not touched, staring out the window at the backyard. She thought about every ordinary moment she had spent in that backyard. Pushing Lily on the swing, planting tomatoes that first summer, reading on the back porch while Michael watched football inside. All of it ordinary, all of it hers, all of it real, and she thought, I built this. I built this home, this family. I showed up for this life more fully than anyone else. And if I built it once, I can build something better, something honest, something where I do not have to shrink, something where I'm not the only one fully showing up. She picked up her phone. She called a divorce attorney. She made an appointment for Friday. And then she picked up her coffee, which was cold by now. And she drank it anyway. And for the first time in 8 weeks, she felt like herself. I want to be real with you all for a minute. Because I think sometimes these stories make leaving sound like instant freedom. Like the moment you decide, everything gets lighter. That is not always how it feels. Sometimes leaving feels like standing in the rubble of something you built and loved and believed in with your whole heart. And knowing that no matter how necessary the demolition was, something real is gone. Jessica grieved the marriage she thought she had. She grieved the man she thought Michael was. She grieved the future she had planned. Family intact, home whole, Lily growing up with both parents under the same roof. She grieved ordinary things, Saturday mornings, inside jokes, the way he used to make her laugh before everything got hard. She grieved the version of herself that believed in that marriage completely, because that woman deserved so much better. And grieving the life you deserved, but never actually got. That is one of the loneliest kinds of grief there is. Give yourself permission to grieve. Leaving the right thing does not mean you do not miss what you thought it was. It just means you loved yourself enough to stop living inside a lie. 8 weeks after finding those messages, Jessica is still in that house, still in that in-between space where nothing is final yet, but everything has already changed. The attorney appointment is Friday. Lily still says, "Good morning, my favorite people," every single day. And Jessica is different now. Not broken different, awake different. The affair gave her something she never expected. It gave her herself back. Because when you are finally forced to stop defending someone, when you stop shrinking and adjusting and apologizing for your own needs, you remember who you were before you started disappearing. Jessica remembered. She remembered she is funny. Genuinely catch you off guard funny. She remembered she loves hiking and had not been on a trail in 3 years because Michael did not enjoy it. She remembered she is a remarkable mother. Not just adequate, remarkable. She remembered she deserves to be in a room with someone who lights up when she walks in, not someone who barely looks up from his phone. She is not fully healed yet. She will tell you that herself. But she is honest now. And honest is the only foundation that anything real ever gets built on. Jessica, if you ever hear this, you are not too much. You were never too much. You were exactly the right amount of love for someone who was not ready to receive it. That is not your failure. That is his loss. And to every woman listening right now who recognized herself in this story, the woman who has been shrinking, the woman who has been adjusting her expectations downward for so long, she cannot remember what she originally wanted. The woman who has been apologizing for wanting to feel loved. The woman carrying the emotional weight of a relationship alone and calling it partnership. Hear me. You are not asking too much. You are asking the wrong person. And the moment you stop pouring yourself into someone who was never going to fill you back up, the moment you turn that love inward, is the moment everything starts to change. You are allowed to want a love that does not require you to disappear. You are allowed to build a life that actually sees you. You are allowed to choose yourself, even now, even after everything, especially after everything. Lily is going to be okay because her mama is going to be okay, and a mama who knows her worth raises a daughter who knows hers. That is the most important thing Jessica will ever do. Not staying, not leaving, being whole for herself and for that little girl who still sleeps with a stuffed elephant named Peanut and wakes up every morning saying, "Good morning, my favorite people." Y'all, drop your verdict in the comments right now. Was Jessica wrong for leaving a remorseful husband? Or is there a point where remorse simply arrives too late? NTA, not the asshole. YTA, yeah, she is wrong. Or just, I felt this in my chest. And I needed to say something. Every voice matters here. If this story moved you, if it made you feel less alone, hit that subscribe button right now. Every single Thursday, I am here. New story, real woman, real pain, real truth. Hit the bell. Share this with someone who needs it today. Because somebody in your life right now is sitting at a kitchen table with a cold cup of coffee and a decision they are terrified to make. Send them this. Let them know they are not alone. Because the truth, it is always messy. And it is always worth it. See you Thursday, sis. Take care of yourself out there. You deserve it. Stories inspired by real-life experiences shared online. All names, locations, relationships, and details changed to protect privacy. Entertainment purposes only.